In this video, what we're going to be talking about is how to be persistent. Because a lot of us set a lot of goals, but we don't follow through with those goals because there's this urge, there's this pull to go back. Where does this urge and this pull come from? What is the mechanism that is making us fall back into these old patterns of thinking and taking action? What is that thing that is actually drawing us back into that old energy? What is that mechanism? Because here's the thing, is that a lot of us tend to unconsciously keep our attention and our focus in the thinking mind without necessarily realizing it. And when you're living your life in this place, some people call this the ego, this tends to involve a lot of patterns of thinking that are very unconscious, like fear and anxiety and worry. And here's the thing, is that the ego loves to stay comfortable. And when I say ego, I'm talking about being absorbed in the thinking mind without necessarily realizing that you're doing this. You're not connected to the beauty and the aliveness of the present moment that is always here at all moments. And so the problem with the ego or the unconscious thought processes is that they have a certain momentum that want to keep going and following that momentum. Following that pattern, following the way that it's been going and the way that it's been conditioned for all these years, whether that be 10, 20, or 30 years. It likes to go in that same direction. And it doesn't have to necessarily be this way, because when the ego is controlling your life, when you're absorbed in the thought processes without realizing it, it wants to keep going that momentum. And so that urge to follow those patterns, which is also the same urge that disconnects us from being present to the moment, is the exact same urge that doesn't allow us to continually be persistent with our goals, to continually follow that process of going into what we want to do. And so the key here is to have observation of the ego, the unconscious thought processes, that will allow you to be persistent. Because when I started meditating every single day 3 years ago, what I learned is how to observe my thoughts rather than be attached to them. And so when I learned to do this, I learned how to stop being so absorbed into my thinking and simply observe them. And so in the awareness of these patterns, what I found is that I actually started to notice the pull to try to go back to my old ways. I started to notice that pull that would take me back into the old patterns. And so when I began to observe this, what I noticed is that I started to understand the deeper mechanisms of what's really going on in my mind. And I started to notice that my ego, my absorbed attention into the thought processes, want to stay comfortable. And so when I began to notice this, I started to notice, wait a second, there's a part of me that continually wants to go back to my old ways and go back to my old ways of being and my old ways of thinking. And so what I started to do is to observe that and notice that and not allow it to have so much control over me. I started to notice that's not necessarily who I am, but it's just a pattern in my head that is conditioned from the past and wants to continue with that momentum. And so the letting go of these patterns and the awareness of them in the meditation allowed me to fully be persistent with my goals, because it wasn't about just being persistent and pushing really hard, because you can do that, but then it only works to a certain extent until the old patterns come back and take you over. And so what I learned in the process of meditating every single day for 3 years is how to be persistent and push through regardless of my feelings. Regardless of how I feel, I still do the meditation every single day. I still do it no matter how I feel, because I understand that how I feel may be a conditioned thing that comes from the past. So my feelings aren't always a good indicator of when I should be persistent or when I shouldn't be persistent. I should be persistent regardless of how I feel. But then if you don't understand the mechanism of the ego and you just take persistence without understanding letting go of the resistance to the old patterns, you might be persisting and creating a lot of suffering for yourself. But the key thing about this technique and becoming aware of the thoughts and letting them go, becoming aware of the unconscious thought processes, the ego, and letting them go, is that when you get rid of the blocks, it's automatically going to be easier to be persistent, because you understand why you're being persistent, what you're actually trying to let go of. This is the process of meditation, is letting go of your past conditioned self, the false self, the ego. And then when you let go of those blocks, it's actually going to become a lot easier to become who you're truly meant to be, who you truly are beyond the conditioned mind, and to actually connect to the deeper part of who you are. And this is going to allow you to be persistent and make it easier. Not to persist in a state of resisting the moment and it's all going to be difficult and hard, but persisting from a place of surrender and allowing yourself to feel how you feel, and just going to make the whole process so much easier. So that's all I have for you today. If you like this kind of content, then consider applying for a free consultation that is in the website, that is in the description box of this video. We can connect deeper. I can help you to let go of these unconscious thought processes and connect deeper into the moment. If you also like this content, consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell, because I post a video every single day. Have yourself a great day and see you in the next video.